Ja, het have been de snidolis, ado, qua enkje van slonny gehet, die benibi code. Adon da ashi kon gehaljistolis, die the Language Teacher Institute, well, yeah, the University of New Mexico, they're sponsoring this. Aron da jo qua ultra has agi jo qua nashnish lato. Sha ultra aron da adot ehego konde deil ahako echilna annested echilna annestoka date ko aron da yaha de kushin ko sanin linigi do den nen lonla in Washington, D.C. de Adinaga. He'll be presenting through Zoom from there. Eilo a konal nishiko. Ako hadide the booklet iki. Let me just run it through. Register she da osla. You'll get a copy of this PDF. I'm a big advocate for saving paper, and late conference going jagada. Nalsos yon jo yela. Arod o konaz nila. Arod nasot obe dejil jale. Ada benina o PDF go shingich eta dol nil aro aniche. You know, you can use it. And we're going to put some research in there, some references that you can use, and also from what is shared today, we'll try and put some of that information in there for you, everything that's shared. So if you can look, there's chart papers that are taped to these beams here. And what I'd like you to do is whatever you feel that's important in the topics that are going to be discussed, just write it up there. We'll put some markers here. If you have questions, put them on the sticky notes. I put sticky notes here and there, and there's some more here. So the questions will go on the sticky notes and just stick it up there. And then during break time, we'll walk around and think about those questions. Aron da hati the nehbazad benatntinge methods and methodology. A knowledge sharing event is what it is. I didn't really want to call it a conference or a workshop or a seminar or a symposium. I just kept it simple. It's just a knowledge sharing event. Aron da she tatne sani yisibits ado shal ado nasht ejtrachini shenale istsa dat eko aron da ashin hidene shache dat ado trodek onje shenale dat eko the tensades ade yisi nasha Aron da shenale da hikate ein le jehdes ade shenale holon holjij ako. Ado shachedo shamasane Alice Jones Slick do Pete Slick. Jo hot yaha belaganik ajo bejinde. Ado has teet sidia bit sit joliende shamasane do shache ya she hits osa joliende. Jason's Twido Sani de hot ashi head the Hudson deco. Aro Chanala da Hekate, Jo Chanala is Sado, Chanala is T. Jason Judy do, Eleanor Judy, will ya? And ako yaha Chanala is Sade, a son of Tra da Hajano, hot hot del Zendeko. Benashni hoye yo alle nataj ian lenigi bitlon hot aba honizi ako hot nan kadin shlonshi ho a de bebuket na shalago Ebits ado llatosh na an tin linigi be inst ko hensen e benashni dolech. Aron da shama Ellen Judy walya. Aro shaje yaha Michael Judy walya. She ati she hojil no do hada she awalya hatsa da she just da ko hot hot be hok e holji she ho just ego hat nile ho just ego jo she hot shamado shaje holoko Aron da shit silikedo na ki ne hos dodi adi nadlisto ada bohandonda Alchina holodo yilhinani ildo Aron inda hashik ein linigi do edo tentades ahado kon ado ultra linigi bigitnet ashike ko enhik edan lon lato ba ultra edan lon da hol jijiko ko age kindergarten don lay na 8th grade ko age ultra Ishla atra Aron da ahodenez ago hot of big ultra lini biket na shago. Jo ishi abini nani da holon shi akot ego. Ultra lini biket that the yasilni ko. And so I just wanted to explain that I come from Rock Point, Arizona through my matrilineal lineage. And also through Low Mountain Smoke Signal area from my patrilineal lineage. My husband is Stephen Bruce Whitstone, and he's from Onion Lake, Saskatchewan. We have 4 children, the oldest of which is our only girl, and she is a two-spirit being. Aro she kayajin linigi talt hot ein halchina holoko. Ade she haja bitlingis tado vikid the hajil tado ba the hajiliako. Ako ya trashal tra. I am a faculty, full-time faculty, and most of my classes are online. It was something that was needed, so I'm teaching the Navajo 101. Navajo 102, and then NIS 371, which is Navajo philosophy. So it's challenging me, these courses, and I appreciate, the challenge and the help that I'm receiving. So moving forward, this is Dene Language Teacher Institute faculty. PI is Dr. Vincent Warrido. And then Dr. Tiffany S. Lee and Dr. Melvitha Chi are all professors that are associated with that program. And if you need to, seek out more information about them and what they're doing, and they're doing wonderful things with the language, providing resources, and some of that is available on Facebook and through the social media platforms. So this event was thought into existence to create space for community engagement within the nation for the purpose of strengthening the Nebizad, Nihizad, our language, through the spirit of collaboration, volunteerism, and knowledge sharing. Through the more recent research around language advocacy for our language, the Nebizad, we can share insights and experiences that can facilitate or inform current practical approaches for the betterment of language advocacy, revitalization, maintenance, sustenance, knowledge base, and or literature. Research and Lenigishi be naso naalka be hunt. It is one of our major sponsors here today, and those of you that are here in person, I know I said lunch is on your own, but I was surprised by their department for hosting lunch. So you'll have lunch at the cafeteria, and you just sign in over there. So I'd like to thank Dr. Christelle and her team, and they're hosting the Research Leadership Program. We were in here yesterday all day for our second workshop. So we're moving forward with the innovative research that is needed around many of the components that we want to be sustainable pieces in our lives moving forward that affect us. These are the emblems. Now I wanted to acknowledge University of New Mexico, the Net Language Teacher Institute for sponsoring us. Whatever funding that they give us is literally going back into printing and travel and the hard work that we're doing here. Presenters and Lini Lato Badish Atlanson Hot Alban Siskesako Ishi. There's always that process we got to follow in institutions to have access to funding, and Dr. Christelle is going to be our first presenter here to kind of give us, shed some light into how money moves within institutions, and you're welcome to think and ask some questions. Of course, she's an expert on all of that, and just the research leadership program workshop we had yesterday in here. There was a lot that opened my eyes. I thought I knew a lot about proposals and funding and grants. Turns out I don't. So that's the mindset we want to approach things with, is to be that lifelong learner, to keep our minds open into, we're always going to learn more, no matter, how much we think we know. Thank you to the Diné College community and Diné Language Teachers Institute. We have Diné Studies team here. We have our women leadership. Sanin Linigi not anin long nichitsijit ne kai. That's a significant event in our history that we have women leaders. Ako ahansen do ba hihenson dishna. Ako Bo Lewis is our acting president right now, with HR director Dr. Perfilia Fowler and our provost Dr. Landry. Ako Elijah and Lonsani na khatahoy ahlo. Bekedo nitle eko hado bithil dahwit hot ehilna anish kwa al-kana at-jahagibik bin nachit. We have our School of Diné Studies and Education Department. This is our Center of Diné Studies faculty. The point of contact for this event is Dean David Peter Nez. He's our new dean, appointed as of this fall. Aronda Shanella Avery, Donda Shamasane Leanne, Aronda Martha, Austin Garrison, Donda Shajea Roger Benali, Aronda Shanella Andrea Charlie, Do Shanella Lorenzo Max, Donda Shatsui, Dr. Wilson Aranio. He's still teaching, and he refuses to let go. And I was wondering, why does he keep coming back? He's retired. To try to tell him to ease off and go rest or something. And the first month I came back in August of 2023, he comes walking in. He says, and he didn't recognize me at the time. And I was on 5th floor at the time. And I was like, wow, And he's 92 years old. And he's been here more than 50 years teaching here. And he was my professor when I was here. Talk about coming full circle, it's amazing. We sat up with him in prayer Thursday night, Jatipi Nita. Zet Ben Hala of the college students organized that event up in Dahaago Tayila. And he came in and sat up with us. Lato jono hodes ze on hinal sadadon hinal besodzen dobe yindits hot benahisil ta. That's an honor, you know. It's an honor, and he was still getting up, you know. He's still inte betchahaltzilla ati hot out akoba benibi, you know. I want to remember him, that he receives, you know, energy that he needs to do the work that he loves so much. Aaron da Asian Thomas Littleben Jr. So some of these language teachers have been here for more than 10 years. Language teachers, linigi do philosophy teachers, and we need people here to carry that knowledge base forward, to share the practical aspects of So I just wanted to reiterate here a motto that I want to pose as something we can think of, that is the whole purpose for this event. So Clay Slate, a while back, I just overheard him talking, and the number of youth speakers is a strong indicator of the health of the local heritage or indigenous language, is what he said. So if we look to our youth, our young ones, how many in our family circles choose to speak the language? That's what we want. We want to grow that number, for them to choose. Ha'ila b'niyah ishbe be'beth illigoyen sekistoleth. Ado hot out delzeno na lielan zendo ya ahon de notzil. Jo yesi b'niyah. Ado da yaha, just the basic information on the whole event. So I've just reiterated here. That a knowledge sharing event is perfect for everyone who believes our heritage indigenous languages are the crux to our Diné well-being and all walks of life. The priority and focus language is Diné Bizad, the Navajo language. Please come by if you're trying your best to teach your heritage language and need some resourceful ideas and opportunities to listen to others share their experiences with teaching and advocating for Diné Bizad, Nihizad. This is something that's important to note. I was trying to figure out how do I pose methods and methodology, because those are terms that are not loosely thrown around in academia, where literature and academic articles are created and published and that push the knowledge base forward. So here I said methods, methodologies, second language acquisition also offer similar ideas, concepts, and conceptualization that parallel across the board in the teaching of LOTE, languages other than English. However, our focus is to answer the following questions about Diné Bizad Binatniltinge, with considerations for what educators have found to be highly effective. What is highly effective when you think about it? And in education, we always seek out best practices in every kind of company or group of people that are human resources, and all over the world. They always seek best practices. So those things to consider. Methods. So in terms of methods, what do you use in terms of tools, materials, whether it's strategy-based, literacy-based, interdisciplinary, community resources, parental engagement. as opposed to parental involvement or parental participation. And through some research, even like from some literature out of Ireland, you know, they have their own languages too. There's many languages outside of English. And so they're grappling with the same concepts that we are. They found that it's better to say parental engagement instead of parental participation. When you say participation, it becomes like an option. And most times it's hard to get people to get involved and to do something for their people. Ako engagement, jiko yaha I sit adole ati delt it go olye. Adole ati delt it go. Ako, when you have engagement, that means you value what is, you know, what people are trying to find ways to make better. That means you're putting yourself in that circle as a way to that's engagement. We need more engagement in terms of parental engagement. How do we invite parents into the schools, and how do they go in there safely without still feeling that intergenerational trauma of what school did to them when they were young? How do we dissipate or get rid of those feelings of fear, of reluctance, of, you know, stigmatizing against the environment of school and books and pencils. So those are some things we can think about. How do we welcome parents in a way that they feel free to come in? Sure, everybody signs in. They sign in as a visitor. They say they're there for whatever reason. But how do we make them feel welcome, that they can stay there and help, be volunteers? And parental engagement. Aron the theories in Lenigi their stories inform theories, and that's coming from Brian Brayboy. And the research and coming to know that he's written about through his own publications, that stories are not separate from theory. Stories make up theory. When you think about it, our Diné stories are legitimate dissertation-like information that we have and carry. They're not published in Sage or in JSTOR or any of these academic journals, but we carry it through our intergenerational oral traditions. Those stories are legitimate pieces of information that inform what Diné wellness is. The pieces of information are embedded in those stories. Theories and lenigi bansis keso thought bihizo. Learning approaches. How do you handle your teaching? How do you handle your teaching space? What is coming from inside of you that is the grounded approach that you have, and as instructional approaches, as learning approaches? When you come into the classroom, you should have the mindset, we should have the mindset that you come into that space not just as the instructor, as the all-knowing instructor, but you come in there with humility to say, I'm here to learn today. 2. Shido ihuidesh Athenson. So that's kind of like the attitude that we need to have. Aro nda e yaha, the research-based approaches. A digi, a joti, this is kind of that place and space to share what that might mean. What does having a research-based approach mean? And the literature, linigi, through research, and we have now some rising indigenous scholars, the NES scholars that are beginning to do the ego, community engagement, different kinds of research to learn about, actual content that they can share with others. And the way that they do that is through their writing. And all of that requires funding. Methodology. How does it work? How does it work? Like you have time frames, contexts. What conditions have to be met? What does it facilitate? What are some implications for possible research? And implications means we take time to reflect. What just happened? What did we do today? That's what I'm going to be thinking this evening. I'm going to take some time to sit with this, what happened today, and reflect. Denella hait a hatahas zi haila dane hala dens no lato benan be hashin sogobeik editin lenegi kwaya hat zegit a halate a ahilne haidash ahilne adok ache hai bendit donnish dochit a bent onnish khish e ya masalado lech Ado chish e ichiln dal nisho e chodon nito ben nastol zil. Jo okon e atishne looking at the implications for possible research that we can do. There's action research that can be done within school systems, but that's hard to do because it takes a lot of extra effort on the part of the teachers and the administrators, the Lenigi, and there's that whole group think when it comes to working with humans. It's hard. It's very hard to get people to move. That's usually the biggest challenge. Aro, how do you know it's effective? Like the assessment pieces, oral, spoken, written, and reading. How do you measure those outcomes? How do you gather data? How do you share data? And how do you share data? How do you interpret the data? And so numbers can say only so much. And beyond that, it requires people talking to each other to actually get at the meat of the issue. And sometimes numbers don't even show that. They don't share the real issue. You need the people power and a way to share that data. So today my hopes are that we come away with reflections on what changes do we need, what needs to happen going forward, and what can I do to help to increase the number of Dene youth speakers. What can I do? We can all do something, even in its smallest measure. How do you say it? So then the registration link and the presenters that we have today, I'll show the list after. I just wanted to acknowledge the late Dr. Wayne Holm, who said, my late wife, Agnes Holm, used to always talk about the nuts and the bolts of language revitalization. She was referring to, it's one thing to say and a whole other thing to do. And it's like, when the rubber hits the road, it's like, oh, what do I do? And even up to this morning, you know, my methods and my methodology, yeah. It's like I was busy with papers and charts and markers and setting up and media and all of that. It just kind of overwhelmed me. Was praying this morning. If you're going to really share good words today, you have to have what you use. This is my method. What tools do you use? They're right here. Those are our tools. Obe e da hozeninde. E ko anata la. Adon da an lenigi do e besist ogida dat edo ayasakata no hot abe nail nish. When we want something to really work, we have to have an offering. We have to be diligent with the practices that date back to our ancestors. That's why I have that there, to acknowledge our indigenous ways of being and coming to know. So they show the what and the how. Aro bi nan tien selai some of us ahot out dane yanigi e ba ahunitzen. But not everybody knows that, and we cannot assume people automatically know and carry those pieces of information. So the objective during this meeting here today, during this workshop, we're expected to apply ourselves by practicing self-motivation, positive approaches, and using an appreciative inquiry technique of self-awareness and conscientiousness as we focus on the methods and methodology being shared to enhance our roles in the Nebazad teaching and learning. While you participate, notice others and take special care to think safety and well-being for yourself, safety and well-being for those around you. To be very mindful of ourselves and where we're coming from, and to be mindful of our words. The mission is the purpose of this workshop is to knowledge share and take away some ideas, resource ideas related to teaching and learning the Nepazad. The vision, the overall sustainable goal is to decolonize and move towards methods and methodology that appreciate and celebrate the essence of our language, Nihizad, the Nepazad. We need sustainable practices that can create the Nebazad speakers among the youth, the adolescents and adults and elders too. The vision is to strengthen our language so much that it becomes the language of choice or the official language of our great Dene nation and what that might mean. Safety plan. So masks are optional today, and I just kind of put this in there as it needed to be a part of the info booklet. So this info booklet was shared with people that needed to approve the event today, which is why it's just kind of a brief pieces here and there. And then here we cannot mandate participants to show they have a COVID vaccination. However, having it on hand would be best is what I had put, but that's just there as a way to remind us to be mindful of each other. Ado, the net college community is not responsible for lost, stolen, or damaged property. Drug and alcohol-free event. If any participant feels there's something to report for safety of themselves or others, we have a campus security who's always around 24/7, and they can be reached at 928-724-6911. And I was hoping to bring refreshments, so sorry about that. And then the basic setup and our itinerary for today. We did the invocation as early as possible, and Shichido invited him, but so that's my fault, which is why I ended up doing the invocation. So the list of presenters, Iggy, I'm going to bump Dr. Andrea Christel up to the front because she has to, anzago, but she doesn't live here, so she drives in to as an employee, drives back and forth. I think it's like a 5 or 6 hour drive from here. So we're going to bump her up to the front. So she'll be starting us off this morning, followed by Chris Jones, and Dr. Christel is going to be doing PowerPoint presentations related to grants and funding. And then Chris will be doing a presentation on learning theories and language teaching curriculum. And then Albert Haskey, who is an employee here as well, offered to share what he's working on in terms of technology and integrating and infusing the Nebazad into that technology. Aaron, the lunch is going to be at the cafeteria thanks to the Naalkape Hund research team and department. So yeah, for that. Aaron, the after lunch, we have early years education and the Nebazad learning by Justina Jones. And then Leanne Totolina is going to be doing the integrating conversational Denebizad at elementary K6 level in a public school setting, where she utilized weekly K6 rotations. That's over 200 kids that she saw weekly. And it's like, okay, how did you do that? That's a lot of children. And then going into the land-based language immersion by myself. And for those of you that are here today, we have a special treat from Lydia Fasthorse, who wants to do a highly interactive presentation with creativity, visual, and performing arts and Denebizad learning. And and she's an elder, have a lot of respect for her, and I wanted to honor her requests for not being recorded, so I just wanted to put that up front and apologize for that. But she is available as a consultant, as are all the other presenters, if they so choose and are willing. So they're, funds of knowledge. Well, yeah, funds of knowledge are people that are nearby who carry big pieces of knowledge that can be shared. And then just the rest of it, and all the attachments I had to add to this document. So, Edeya Ahotela. So, Dr. Christel, you can go ahead and let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll get started here in just a bit again. It's just for the presenters. Okay. Yeah, because I felt it's just going to be too much. Okay. Yeah. And it's going to interrupt the live stream feed anyway. So, all right. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So it's just for the presenters to put their stuff up there.
didn't eat anything. Sometimes doing something like this, it's just like, nope, I don't have time to do that. I didn't realize that was Miranda's son. Dr. Christelle. So Albert will be right behind me.
Yate. Yeah. Yeah.
Testing.
Oh, okay. Ready for me? Okay. Yate Diviniki. Good morning, everybody. Um, my name is Andrea Christel. I'm the Vice Provost for Research here at Diné College. My mother's mother is German. My father's mother is English. My mother's father is Scots-Irish, and my father's father is French. I've had the privilege working at Diné College to learn to introduce myself in that way. And it's been so educational for me because it's made me realize that the way we introduce ourselves gives us an opportunity to reconceive ourselves. And because I wasn't raised in the Diné tradition, I always associated with my patrilineal line first. And coming to Diné College, I learned to think about my matrilineal line first. And I love that, right? It's been very empowering for me. And it's really taught me that that knowledge is very flexible. And so I'd like to thank Dr. Michelle Whitstone for the opportunity to be here today and to share with you a little bit about grants, fundraising, and sustainability efforts. But most of all, to thank all of you for the work that you're doing to sustain the language and these ways of knowing. Okay, our office, I'm going to go back first. So our name, Nalka Be Onit, is not a translation, obviously, of research, innovation, and practice, but I get a different interpretation every time I talk to someone, so I'd be interested to hear from folks here how Nalka Be Onit is understood. But this name was given to us by Rex Lee Jim, who is a medicine man and faculty member in Diné Studies. And it's a way of hunting or gaining knowledge by following footsteps, right? So it's a way of learning or knowing. And we take great effort to always use that Navajo name before we say research, innovation, and practice to remind us of where we are. I'm the only Bilagana in our department, so it's probably especially for me, right, to remind myself that I'm at Diné College, and the way that we support research and the way that we support knowledge creation will be a little bit different here. So Na'aka Behonit is our approach, and then the things that we support are research, right, which in many ways, I think is a form of knowledge creation, of innovation. We're very proud at Diné College. We are the first tribal college or university to have a patent. And we not only have one patent, we now have 2 patents. And we have 2 grants to support intellectual property among Navajo people. So patents, copyrights, and trademarks, right? Many of the Navajo cultural arts programs have designs, right, weaving, silversmithing, and we want to create opportunities for people to get intellectual property protections and to benefit from the economic returns. If you think about Pendleton blankets, for example, many of the designs on Pendleton blankets are Navajo designs, but do the Navajo designers get the economic returns on the sales of the Pendleton blankets? So part of our Technology Transfer Center is a way to help people gain intellectual property rights so that they can get the economic return that they deserve for their inventions. And we also support practice, right? So we support research, we support innovation and new things, but what Dr. Whitstone was talking about in terms of traditional ways of knowing, traditional life ways, traditional language, right? We support practices. So that is what our office is, and that is what we do. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about our office, and then I will share some strategies that will hopefully help you all gain access to funding and resources to support your efforts. Okay, so this dedicated office to support research was established in 2022. So we've been here for about 3 years, and I've been at Diné College for 4 years. Right now, we have 70 active research accounts. We have 18 PIs, or principal investigators, or faculty members or staff members leading those activities. And we have 8 units engaged. So all 4 of our schools, like the School of Diné Studies and Education, which is sponsoring this event today, the School of STEM, the School of Business and Social Sciences, which Dr. Haskey is a member of, and also the School of Arts and Humanities. Some of our achievements are, just this year, we got 2 Department of Defense equipment awards. One was for $800,000, and that gave us access to microscopes, high-powered microscopes at our Tuba City campus, so students there now can perform research on site. They used to have to travel to NAU or sometimes all the way down to ASU to gain access to these resources. We now have that available at Tuba City. We also got a sequencer here on our land-grant office. That was a $400,000 piece of equipment. Again, we used to have to take the samples that they were getting out with our agricultural producers down to ASU or over to New Mexico State. We now have that equipment here in Saline, right? So we can run those tests here. So we're very proud of those equipment acquisitions. We also got a legislative appropriation to support technology transfer. I talked about that a little bit already, our patents, copyrights, and trademarks. And we also have a Mellon Foundation Award that allows us to bring Diné scholars back to Diné College. These are people that have had successful careers as artists, in politics, in many areas, people that said we'd love to come back and share, on Navajo Nation with Diné students, and we now have a mechanism to do that. We pay them a full-time salary for a year and are also able to provide housing and also able to provide them with a project budget. So those are some of the things that we've achieved. We have increased our annual research expenditures year over year. So the first year, this is actually tiny on my screen, I can barely read it, but it's from 2.7 million. Our second year, we increased our research expenditures to 4.5 million. And then the third year to 5.8 million. We're on track. I think we're going to be over 7 million this next year. So we're very proud of this progression. And note that those are expenditures. For any of you that have worked with grants, you know that sometimes it can be easy, not easy, but you can get the award, right? You think, oh, this is great, we've got the award. But then we have to do the work, right? And it's the doing of the work and actually spending the money that counts, right? And that's what we're focused on here, is not just winning the award, but spending the funds. So our funding expenditures are on a steady increase. And just a few weeks ago, we learned that Diné College is one of just 2 tribal colleges or universities that is designated as a research institution by the new Carnegie classifications. So hundreds of institutions are considered research institutions. Diné College is among those and one of only 2 tribal colleges. So those are some of the things that we've done. Again, I'd like to thank Dr. Whitstone for the opportunity to be here today. And what I'd like to talk to all of you a little bit about what it means to do research on Diné Bekeya and how we can, Diné Bekeya, and how we can support that. So research, knowledge, and preservation. How can research contribute to preserving Navajo language, culture, and traditional practices? And what are the risks of not prioritizing culturally informed research, and how can we guard against those risks? I think that's something that we're always asking ourselves here at Diné College. On the one hand, we can pursue certain types of scientific research in the identical way that it's practiced at New Mexico State University, right? So what makes Diné College distinctive? And what can we do here that can't be done anywhere else? Right? That's what I think is really unique about being here on Navajo Nation. There's research that can be done here, right, on this land that can't be done anywhere else. And so the more we can articulate that, the more we can explain why it's important to do Navajo research on Navajo land, right, on Diné Bekeya, the more we can make the case for strengthening our institution here. Okay, so one of the things that your group can help articulate is how, from a Diné perspective, research might differ from conventional Western methodologies. Dr. Whitstone is in our research leadership program today, or she was here yesterday, and she said, as I was explaining many of the budget parameters and going over this, she was like, this is so colonized. She was like, this is just not the way we approach thinking or knowing. It's not integrated, it's artificially separated. She said, this is just not, this is sort of antithetical, the way it's structured, to what we want to do. And I can appreciate that point. I'm sure she's right. So what we need to articulate, and I think we have funders now, I think we have people that will listen to us, is how should it be structured? What do you need? How could this work for you? I think we have funders that will listen to us, but they don't know what you need. So we need you to articulate and tell us how this could be structured in a way that would work. Then how do we ensure that research projects align with DNET values? And what are those values, right? How do those get articulated? This is a question already that Dr. Whitstone brought up, right? How can research at Diné College support the transmission of traditional knowledge between generations, right? She talked about including parents, including grandparents. That's not something that we usually do in research. So if that's important, why is it important? And can you explain that in these projects? And in what ways can modern research methods complement oral traditions and other indigenous ways of knowing? We're also looking for input from your group about why it's essential to involve community members. This gets back to the generational issue. And how can researchers ensure that their work benefits and uplifts the Navajo Nation as a whole? Dr. Monty Russell, who was our president for a number of years and a visionary leader and one who really supported research at Diné College, was always concerned not just with how research was benefiting students here, of course he cared about that very much, but how we were serving Navajo Nation as a whole. Okay, and then looking ahead, what are some key areas where developing research capacity could address those challenges facing the Navajo Nation? And finally, how can Diné College serve as a model for other Indigenous institutions by integrating traditional knowledge into academic research? I think this is important for Diné College to realize the extent to which we are a model for other tribal colleges and universities. Of course, this institution was founded in 1968 as the first tribal institution. We're also the first tribal institution to stand up a research office like this. And so through AHEC, the American Indian Higher Education Consortium, other tribal colleges are really looking to Diné College to chart the way forward for how to do this. Okay, so those are some background considerations. Now I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes, the funding mechanisms. And I'm going to talk first about Title I and Title II and Title III, just because Dr. Whitstone asks about this all the time, and I kind of want to clear the air here. This first slide has very little to do with the funding that our office could help people get, but you hear about this a lot. And so one of the things that I want to try to do this morning is talk about some of the most fruitful paths to funding for this group. You may hear a lot about Title I and Title II and Title III. These are federal appropriations. Our institutions get this funding, but it's more for operational support for student services. It allows us to do things like run, our maintenance programs. Sometimes there are pots of money in these appropriations that we can use to support education, but Title I and Title II and Title III are mostly used for the operational aspects of the institution and not so much for research. But they are federal funds and we do hear about them. So I wanted to acknowledge that they exist, but explain what their focus is for. Funding sources to support faculty-led initiatives, right? Teacher-led initiatives, which is what I think folks here today are doing. There are three main mechanisms that do this. There are grants, there are cooperative agreements, and there are contracts. Grants is highlighted here for a reason, because it's the #1 way that people in this room are probably going to get money that's going to give them the freedom and the latitude to do the work they want to do, right? This is a financial award that's given to you, usually to conduct some sort of research, right? That's what we'll be focused on today, without any expectation of repayment. And the PI, the principal investigator, the person in charge, is the one leading the work. Someone decides that you're the subject matter expert, that you have the expertise, and this is your money to spend to carry out the activities as you deem and as you direct. A cooperative agreement is kind of like a grant, except in this case, the person who's giving you the money wants to be involved. They don't want to just give you the money, they want to be a partner with you. Diné College has several cooperative agreements through our land grant office. Often USDA, other agricultural organizations want to work with land grant hand in hand as they execute their work. So it's a more sort of hands-on relationship with the funder. And then contracts are simply fee for services, right? I mean, if we wanted to hire someone to come in and paint the room, they presumably wouldn't have to do research. They don't need help from the person giving them money. They perform the service, they paint the room, we give them the money. Contracts are also sometimes relevant in educational institutions. A K through 12 school might contract someone from Diné College to come in and provide a service or deliver a curriculum. So contracts are mechanisms. But among these three, grants, cooperative agreements, and contracts, grants are the most common funding mechanism. So with a grant focus, we should ask, like, who makes grants, right? We see like, oh, I should write a grant to get some money. I'd like to get some more funding resources. Well, how we do that depends on who is making the grant. And there are a lot of different types of organizations that make grants. So first you want to find out, really think about who your target is. The federal government makes grants. It's kind of an unknown state of affairs right now with the federal government. So we're trying to think really creatively about where other sources, might be for previous federal funding that we've relied upon. But still at this time, offices like mine are just kind of like moving forward with blinders on, acting like everything is normal, applying for the funding opportunities that are out there, but we're also ready for the rug to be pulled out from under us at any minute. So the federal situation is a little bit tricky to discuss at this particular moment in time. Navajo Nation makes grants, right? So some of your work might be supported directly by a grant from the Navajo Nation. States make grants, right? Here at Diné College, we work with the state of, particularly Arizona and New Mexico. We'd like to do some more work with Utah. We'd like to start getting funding from the state of Utah. County and municipal governments make grants. And then finally, nonprofit organizations make grants. The Henry Luce Foundation, Ford Foundation, Mellon Foundation, and Kellogg Foundation are some of the private funding agencies that we work with here at Diné College. So, when you're thinking about a grant, you might think, first of all, who's interested in supporting my work? And then, and this is some of the work that we've been doing with Dr. Whitstone in the Research Leadership Program, these grants, you would think, oh, well, why don't these folks get together and structure each one of these in the same way? But it's not how they do it. And each opportunity is its own opportunity. So they all are very unique and they all have very specific conditions. And for that reason, this practice can be quite time-consuming. Okay. What kind of grants are there? I'm going to step out here because this is so small on my machine I can barely read it. Okay, so there are operating grants, right, that help organizations sustain their operations. I talked about those. It's Title I and Title III, right? That's just keeping the lights on, hiring, a security crew, very basic. There are capacity building grants, like we have one of those to build our technology transfer center. There are equipment grants, right? There's no labor associated with that. You just purchase the equipment. I mentioned a few of those. Capital grants, right, for one-time acquisitions. If you build a new building, right, that's an example of a capital grant. Project grants to do something very specific. AmeriCorps and Peace Corps are the best examples of that. And finally, research grants. And research grants have to do with learning, right? And so when you hear about grants, the reason I introduce all these is because people talk about grants, and we often use this single word to refer to many different kinds of things. And that's one of the reasons that this can be so confusing. So we started out with like Title I, Title III, big federal appropriations, right? We said we're not doing that. Okay, we're focused on grants, but they can come from a lot of different places, federal, state, municipal, private, right? And the grants can do a lot of different things. So what we are focused on out of all of that is really research grants, grants that allow us to learn. Okay, so why are there research grants, right? Well, to gather data, to analyze trends, to push for policy change, to learn, and to innovate. And when we started out this morning, I thought it was very interesting that this was described as a knowledge sharing event, right? And it was not a conference and it's not a workshop, right? But Dr. Whitstone described it specifically as a knowledge sharing event. Well, what's the significance of that? What's the significance of having a knowledge sharing event versus a conference? That's a research question. That's something that someone would give you money to answer. That's something we could fund Dr. Whitstone to hold 6 of these, to go to 6 conferences, and to say, here's what's different about when I hold a knowledge sharing event, on Navajo Nation at Diné College from a conference in Salt Lake City, right? Here's the community that we convene. Here's what's different. If she could explain that, right, then we can get funding to talk about the difference and to talk about why it's important, right? So this sort of analysis, right, is what a research grant can be used for. Okay, so each one of you, and we've been working very closely with Dr. Whitstone on this, should develop then a research agenda. And your research agenda is the questions you care about, the things you want to learn, the work you want to do. And this is really important in the world of grants because, as you've seen, there are all kinds of grants with all kinds of people getting money, and it's easy to get kind of kicked around and to go chasing the dollars, right? We've got, $500,000 over here if you'll do this. We've got $2 million over here if you'll do that. But then all of a sudden, you say, like, what are my own passions and priorities? So you want to start with you. You want to start with your passion. You want to start with what you care about and figure out the work you want to do, the questions you want to ask, and what you want to solve. And once you know that, then it's much easier to find the funding opportunities that are appropriate. If you start just going out and looking for funding opportunities before you really sit with yourself, and before you really determine what work you want to do, you'll just be overwhelmed with everything that's out there. So you want to start first to develop your own research agenda, answer the question who you are, what you care about, and what you hope to learn. Okay, so when it comes to what you hope to learn, you're probably going to need certain resources to figure that out. So common things that we ask for in grants are personnel, your time, maybe somebody else's time. Maybe you need a project assistant or a project coordinator to help you do everything that you want to do, right? Maybe you need equipment and supplies. Maybe you need to travel, right? Other miscellaneous support. So it's very important to kind of think about this in terms of why you need these things to answer your questions or to discover what it is you need to know. Not just that you need the resources for their own sake, but how having these materials, this equipment, this travel funding, this extra staff person on your team is going to help you answer the questions that you care about. And the one I want to highlight here most of all is personnel. And that includes your own time, and that includes maybe getting somebody else to help you do the work you want to do. The number one thing that we see happen, right, is people apply for a grant and they ask just for supplies, or they ask just for other material equipment, and they say, I'll do this in addition to the job that I'm already doing, which is probably a very full-time job, right? And then people have all this extra work to do for the grant, and they say, I'm so exhausted, I don't know why I signed up for this, I'm never gonna write for another grant again, right? We see that happen over and over. We don't want that to happen. There is a lot of funding and resources available. The way to do it, to practice self-care and care for others, is to budget appropriately for your time. If you are teaching classes, that means negotiating with your supervisor to get release from some of the classes you currently have so that you have time to do the additional work. If it's going to involve a lot of work with the community, and you've got to work with parents and grandparents, and you've got to get forms signed and collect the data and analyze the data, you may need a project assistant. You may need in your grant to do everything you want to do another person on your team. You may need 2 other people on your team. You need to collaborate, but budgeting for time and realizing that you probably all already have very full-time jobs. So be careful when you write a grant or get funding, you're not giving yourself another full-time job with no extra time and no extra money, right? Because that leads to burnout, and understandably so, and we want you to practice self-care and get the help and support that you want. So personnel is number 1 on the list. Okay, and the point here is that in a research grant, you want to say, I need all these things, right, to answer this question that the funder cares about, right? You want to keep that in mind. You don't want to just say, like, I need this, I need this, I need this. There has to be a correlation or a tie between everything you're asking for and how that's going to help you answer the research question. Okay, so how to do all this without getting overwhelmed. I think this is a key factor as well. And if I could just have a raise, how many people are here from institutions of higher education, from a college or university? Okay, K through 12? Okay, and a community or community-based organization. Okay, and folks, do you have a grants administrator or someone that works with external funding? Is there a resource available to you or someone that you can work with? Yes? Okay, use that person, okay? Dr. Whitstone used me. She said, hey, I'm having this meeting. We want to talk about grants. You're my resource person. Could you please come and talk about that? Because my job, right, I work for Diné College, and my job is a customer service role. I am there to support faculty. I'm there to support staff members who want to get funding. And it's very complicated, and for many people, it's a full-time job. So don't feel like if you have another job, whether it's teaching or community service, that you also now have to become a grants expert. The number 1 thing is to ask these people to help and reach out for support. And I'm really proud of our team at Diné College. We have 4 other folks in our office, really amazing team. So if any of you need help or need support, I mean, we can't do the submission for you or necessarily write a proposal, but we can definitely guide you, and we're happy to work with you, especially if you're working with Diné Bazad. I mean, that is a priority for our institution throughout Navajo Nation. So we are a resource. If you have a resource with the place you're working, great, use those people. If you're like, you know what, we're really small, we don't have that, Diné College is here, and we can at least get you started with some resources. Another way not to get overwhelmed is to participate in a collaborative program. Grants are often, it really ranges, frankly. It depends on who your sponsor is, who the person, sponsor is the word we use for people that give you the money, right? Some people are like, here's the check up front for 3 years, a cash in hand, and, send us a page at the end of every year, would ya? Those are the people that we love to work with, right? Other people are like, we want a financial and technical report every 3 months. We want effort certification. We want to see the books. We want to, it's like, wow, this is a really heavy, reporting and administrative burden. And that's one of the things we look at. We're like, okay, what's the reporting burden? How much extra work is this going to be for us really? And how much money are they giving us? And is this working out in our favor? And sometimes we'll negotiate, right? We'll say, we really think that the administrative burden for this amount of money is too high, right? We would like to renegotiate. And so that's something to keep in mind, is that sometimes you can feel like, oh, this person's giving the money, we're asking for the money, they're totally in charge, we have to do what they say. Nope. Like, you always have power. You can always negotiate. If the terms and conditions seem a little bit unreasonable, they might be a little bit unreasonable. And so you should feel free to at least ask. It never hurts to ask. But at any rate, often the reporting requirements are really one-off. These are all unique organizations. And if you participate in a collaborative program, like if you're running a program and you're running the same program at another school and you're running the same program at another school and you're all doing it together, you can work with each other on your reporting. You can talk to each other about how you're doing things. And oftentimes funders like to see that something's not just in one spot, but maybe that it's happening at several schools or several chapter houses across the Navajo Nation. So a collaborative program is a way not only to scale the work, but also to have a friend, right? To have somebody who's going through what you're going through and to make it less overwhelming. I talked about this already, but developing a systematic approach or a research agenda, I can't say it enough. Like, understand who you are, know who you are, what your priorities are, and then always let that drive your activity. Don't let someone else push you around into doing what their priorities are. Know what your priorities are, and then only pursue those funding opportunities that support that. And then once you have that, focus. Really have to focus on that. And it's just very easy. And if you're all working in education, you all know this. There's a lot of good work out there to be done. There are a lot of things that can be done, but you are only one person, right? So you have to really pay attention to what your priorities are. And then to communicate with folks who can help you. And it's also really important, like if you have research administration office, communicate with them. If you need to make any changes with your sponsors, if you need any help filling out your reports, their help is available for you. Okay. Sustainability, I think, is really important. Oftentimes, we get funding for a project or initiative, then the funding runs out and the initiative stops. So the best time to start thinking about your next grant is 6 to 12 months, like maybe even a full year before your grant runs out. There are 1 or 2 year grants, and sometimes that's a way to get started. We really encourage you to think about 3 to 5 year grants, right? Because it takes a while to get things started. Like, say you get funded and you can hire a person and you can get all these supplies. Like, it actually takes work to spend the money, right? And it takes some time. And often it takes a full year to really figure out what you want to do, then get things set up. Then the second year you start learning. Then the third year, you really finally have an idea, and then you're out of funding, right? So you want to make sure that at the beginning of that third year, right, you're 6 to 12 months out, that you're already planning for your next proposal. And then again, just ensure that your applications align with your research proposal and agenda. I keep talking about the research agenda, and the reason that I do that is because I see people so often get pulled away by dollars, right? Or get pulled away by someone else's vision. But if you take the time to establish your own agenda and priorities first, that will really help you in the long run. Okay. Now I want to get back to some things that Dr. Whitstone shared at the beginning, which is why some of the funding models that we have don't work, right? The funding structures tend to be very regimented. They tend to be very focused on data. They tend to be very focused on numerical counting, right? I think one of the things that was emphasized this morning, right, is that there are cultural resources here and ways of doing things that are not captured by statistics, right? And so a case needs to be made for funding on a basis other than counting the numbers of students and testing them and looking at the difference in their, achievement levels. So I really think that there's an opportunity here for this group with Diné Bazad to say, what is Diné Bazad? Why does it matter? How does it need to be supported? And I think that the funders that we could go to first are the private funders, like Kellogg or Mellon, someone like that. Probably not state or federal, frankly. They're going to be less flexible. But to really, with Dr. Whitstone leading this group, take your ideas about how you need to be supported back and say, this is our culture, this is our tradition, this is the way we need to be supported, and try that out. I feel like Diné College is in a good position to lead that because we are a tribal college and we've attained some success, right, in the more colonized mechanisms, right? Like we've got the Carnegie classification. That's definitely like a Western-focused thing. We're bumping up our spend every year by millions of dollars. That's that Western data metric. So it seems counterintuitive, but I think because we have that credibility, right, we can play that game. We can now say, you know what we've learned? We can do it this way. We've demonstrated that, but we've talked to our experts in Diné Bazad, and they are really seeing like an epistemological difference. There's a different way of knowing that's not captured here, and we need to be funded and supported this way. And if this group can articulate that, I think that we're in a position now to go to funders and ask for the kind of support that you need. I can help with the budget and writing that proposal, but I need you all to tell me, that piece of the information. But I think this group is really poised to do something innovative here on Navajo, and then again, serving as a model for other tribal colleges and universities. So, I think that is what this group could achieve, which is really significant, which is remaking the model. So I would just say like the budgets and the statistical stuff, like we can help with that too, right? But the real vision and the way research could be transformed is by you telling us perhaps a different way to do it and how it could be done. And if you, and I'll just tell you in conclusion, if you might wonder, like, who is Andrea and why does she work for Diné College? And what's her interest in supporting research at a tribal college or university? My background is in philosophy. So I have a PhD in philosophy, and I used to work at Northern Arizona University. And before I moved to this part of the country, I knew nothing about tribes. I knew nothing, certainly, about Navajo. And I was very fortunate to meet a Navajo woman there and became friends with her, and that's how I learned about Diné College. But I also was giving a presentation to high school students on environmental ethics, which is one of the things that I taught. And this was like 75% Navajo students, and I wasn't anticipating that. And I walked into that classroom, and I was getting ready to tell them that one of the earliest environmental thinkers was Henry David Thoreau, And after that, it was really, Aldo Leopold was really significant in the 20th century. And so I had, my lecture all prepared, and maybe I had a microphone like this, and I looked out there, and I said, like, well, I don't know what I'm going to say, but it's not going to be that Henry David Thoreau was like the earliest environmental thinker. Like, I'm going to have to, revisit this. And so I just asked the students, what's your connection to the environment or way of knowing, or what does that mean to you? And I just realized, like, wow, I thought I was smart. I had a PhD. I knew about environmental ethics. I was like, I don't know anything about this, and I mostly don't know where I am. So it was just, a real opportunity for me later in my life to learn. And I think that, in many ways, I've learned a lot about my own heritage too, and in many ways I feel like there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of making up for past harms and grievances. In many ways I'm proud of some of the technological achievements, but in other ways, like, I'm certain that this world is on a path towards destruction when it comes to environmental sustainability, and that mostly for epistemologies and ways of learning, that Western ways are not going to get us there alone. And I think that there are probably, Navajo ways of knowing, other ways of knowing, of connecting to the earth, of connecting to our environment, of understanding one another, that could be really valuable for the world right now. So anyway, that's how I got here, and some of the things that I'm interested in. But I'd like to thank Dr. Whitstone again for the opportunity. I wish you all a great success in your work together here today. And as you're looking for funding opportunities, let us know how we can help at Diné College. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Christelle. She has to drive back towards Sedona. So, yeah, Nana. Let's take a quick break while we set up our next. So if you have questions for Dr. Christelle, and also, hopefully we bring her back for part 2, and just use the sticky notes and write down some questions. I'm sure she got you thinking about, funding sources and how they work. But the how part is a lot of work, and the message to take from her, I think, is, sure, it's great to get funding, but then what do you do with it in the most effective, you need help. You need people to help you to plan. Like, one person can bring in this real huge funding budget, but then thank you to Dr. Christelle for sharing. And again, her department is sponsoring our lunch today. So everybody that's here can go over to the cafeteria and have lunch over there. So let's take a quick break, and I'll set up Mr. Albert Haskey, and he's going to be, his is a very short one, not very short, but he wanted to keep it succinct, short and succinct. And then after him, we'll put Christina, and Christina can take us all the way into lunch. So take a quick 10-minute break. Walk around a little bit, stretch your legs, and there's coffee and Navajo tea out there. And we'll try and set you up for door prizes here. We have a lot of prizes that were donated by Shiprock, Diné College campus, Winifred Jumbo. So it was lovely to get this help, and very surprising, and touched my heart. Dr. Christelle's team, they brought in some items too for door prizes and for the presenters, and also Naalkape Hund. That's what the department is called that she's a part of. Aro Nitsado Itahuila is that Mellon Foundation. They bring in artists that have found a really awesome way of integrating our knowledge base into the contemporary arts. And we have a couple visiting artists this semester, and they're going to be here. Our students are, they're setting up workshops. They're actually doing hands-on things. They're creating art together. They're learning together. They're creating videos together, and those are going to be available to the people. That's what they're showing. So we also have a display on 4th floor in the museum by an artist who is going to school here and doing her studies through taking coursework through the NEC College. And it would have been nice to have done a tour, but I'm learning as I go. And that would have been a lovely thing to do for today, is take a tour of her artwork. And she has really awesome stuff up there. And when you get a chance, please come by during opening, when the museum is open, to view her work. Alrighty, I'll stop talking and let's give ourselves a break, 10 minutes. Hagona.
double check. Everyone can see it. That's the next page. All right.
Okay. Do a testing thing.
Oh, and then, okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing so I gotta share my PowerPoint if I want to present. And that'll
You have to tell us where you're at so we can understand all this.
in Albuquerque.
Okay.
It was challenging to try to get back all in one night.
Okay.
All right, and then I'll try to make this bigger. Yeah, so people can actually see it from the distance.
Okay.
Same.
Are you guys ready to go? Okay, they're ready to go, Shaj.
Okay, so everyone can hear me. Just double checking.
Oh, Jenna.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh. Okay, let's see. Let me get my presentation up real quick. And okay, all right. Can everyone see this presentation? I hope they can. Okay, jag educator Albert Haskin and I'm going to be talking about incorporating technology / coding and programming with the Navajo language and culture. Cool. So, quick introduction. Jag educator Albert Haskin look ajiga dan na sha odashi hoa donen shlenigi shihin shlen. Tohe glini bushes ching additional edition shaking ani dashanele. Although I like to dabble in a bit of film photography or just photography or videography in general, but my primary focus is coding and developing. It's kind of hard to showcase that. Okay, cool. I want to talk about the struggles that comes with, teaching Navajo language and culture without technology. Mind you, these are just struggles. They're not like, hindrance in that sense. They're just like things that are good, but it's a challenge when it comes to teaching it. We have resource to, detailed printouts, which is always grateful, and possible worksheets, along with flashcards, printing all those out. Back in my day, I remember my teacher always having to print those out, and I'm always so grateful that they did that. But let's be real, it can be very cumbersome. What if your printer fails? What if a certain material is not even no longer online and you can't find it, and now you lost it? What happens then? See, these are the challenges and struggles I mean when it comes to like teaching the culture without technology. The resources are very limited, and it's almost like you get to resort to carrying around a dictionary. There's nothing wrong with that, but when it comes to, innovating, the big hurdle is always about the computer. We tend to kind of hide away from the computer. And why? Why? Or sorry, why? Why do we do that? One big reason is it's unknown to us. Sorry, I thought it was swapped. My bad. But one big reason is why is it? So it's unknown. Another factor is, and this is a real one, of course, is a fear of dependency. We often have fear that, oh, no, we don't want them to rely on their phone to learn about the culture, right? But God, that's not the point. It's usually dependent on how it's taught. And so we have to further educate ourselves to further, advance these learning materials. And so another part can be loss of control. And I don't want to get too deep into this, but this kind of dives into a little bit about data sovereignty. I don't know if you ever heard about that one Lakota project that they did a dictionary with, but once they finished the dictionary, the person basically took it and said, all right, we can't give you it because now, you didn't give us money or whatever. But they basically held that resource ransom for them. We don't want that for us. So that's why it's our job as Dene to take hold of these, projects and really instill that, what we need, what we're doing. And so ultimately, we want to know what is a computer, or better known as a longer version. And so, what is a computer? Most of us kind of don't understand at the moment. But is it the screen? I mean, yeah, some of your TVs do have a computer chip in it, but it's not the computer itself. Is it that black box in the corner of your office? I mean, yes, but also the more minute components I'm talking about are the chip. More specifically, the computer chip. Cool. So that is the computer, that also known as a CPU, which is the acronym for Central Processing Unit. And think of it as a CPU as like your brain. And so we want to go into understanding what is that. And so CPUs are made of material, which is silicon, copper, and aluminum, gold, silver, phosphorus, boron, plastic, epoxy resin, and titanium and padmium. It's a little hard to pronounce those two. But notice that they're materials from Navajo. This is no different from a grinding stone. A grinding stone was once just materials made of mano and mate. How is a CPU any different? So now, hopefully, that we break that barrier that these materials come from Nahastan, and they're less unknown. We just kind of manipulated it to benefit our needs, in a sense. Oh, cool. So, recap real quick. Silicon is this material, to further emphasize, which is then manufactured and, really pretty put together into a CPU. And that's kind of the architecture of a CPU structure. I had a slide that goes into depth about this pattern and how it correlates with our rug designs, but we don't have enough time for that, unfortunately. So what can you do with this type of technology? In one case, I decided to develop this app called Adone. Adone is a Navajo clan app developed by me, Awaraski, and it's an app that helps, integrate Navajo cultural practices for the next generation and future generations. It brings the potential uses of technology when it comes to teaching about Done, which is, our clanships. Like how I introduced myself in Denekache, Ashi, Toye, Glini, Kazaflane, and Kinyaani. Cool. Before I continue, let me show you a demonstration. It will be very slow, so bear with me. Can everyone see this?
Oh.
Okay, all right, so this is the Adolna app that I have installed on my phone, and anyone can have it. It's available on Apple and Google. And so, cool, when you open the app, you create your profile, and this is my profile. Cool. Albert, Ashin, Toye, Glini, Kuzafane, Kinyani. Cool. So let's say we wanted to compare clans. One big question is, all right, yes, you can compare one another's clan. Sorry if you didn't catch that. It's very slow, but the idea is, yes, it told me I'm related to Ashin, and it color codes it and understands, and I'll call F results for every single opportunity in which those, in that situation, the clanship would be used. So next big question I always get from everyone is, oh, cool, it'd be cool if you can have it understand the clan groups. I'm like, it does do that. Watch. Sanjikine. Cool, is related to Ashin. See, it pops up. And so this is the algorithm that I had to create just based off of an algorithm that was already out there. It was just a matter of translating that cultural teaching into code and software. And so, yes, it does do more complex, but for the sake of time, I'm going to just skip that. I will allow people to be able to download this later with the QR code, so just bear with me. This is just showing the potential uses of technology in our everyday lives. So back to the presentation. Oh. All right. And so, this comes to, so then why is technology so important when it comes to learning about the Navajo language and culture? Well, these are the 4 reasons I've come up with. Wider accessibility. No longer are you strapped to a classroom to teach these courses. You can broaden your ranges and make it more widely accessible to people in the city, for example. Everyone in the city loves this app. They always like saying, how'd you get that? Where is that? And then I immediately try to show them in that sense. Another part is efficiency and scalability. No longer, maybe like, think about this. Maybe you have a dictionary and you no longer need to print out this dictionary. You don't have to print out a 312-page dictionary, or you don't have to, buy the dictionary itself because it's just so cumbersome it's so much money and resources. How about just have the software that would be able to download on any device that you would own, maybe by the school, See how efficient that is, and the scalability of that is like immense. You can go to every school, and every school would have this type of access. Along with, this one's a bit difficult to kind of understand, and I wish I can do better in showcasing this, is integration with new technologies, specifically AI, VR, AR learning experiences. So those are a lot. AI we tend to know as artificial intelligence. It's kind of hard to showcase that, probably. I will have a demonstration coming up. VR, I don't know if you've seen the Googles of virtual reality where you're like in a simulated world. You can possibly create a system that allows you to understand. Maybe it's like a 3D render of your experience. That's one example. AR is more augmented reality, which is, but there are like little things like maybe a screen right here and a screen over here that tells you certain things of an aspect of an object, if that makes sense. Very complex, very cumbersome. I wish I can go into depth more about what each of those mean. Another one, an ultimate goal is preservation and revitalization through communities, which ultimately leads us to our ultimate goal of fluency. These are tools to achieve fluency. I used to think these would be, I tried to figure out how these were not replacements, and they aren't. These are not replacements for teachers. In fact, I'd like to offer these resources to you, instructors, because this would make teaching Navajo language much more, less of a headache, hopefully. So cool. We're gonna go into more demonstrations. This one is AI, which is also another word for machine learning, but what I'm gonna be showcasing is this machine learning web app that describes things in Navajo. Okay, let's see, hopefully I can pull that up. All right, can everyone see this? Oh, good shame. So while I'm getting this set up, this was a project I worked with Lakota AI Code Camp back in last summer. And our job was to create this learning model in machine learning to help ways to create technology that can assist in learning the language. And so in this case, since I'm Dene, I wanted to focus more on Dene. So I have a set samples of images that I'd like to test with that I took pictures at home with. So let's start with this image. This image is a plate. But in Dinek etche, oh wow, right there. Slates even with audio. Hopefully that audio came through. Did that come through? Oh, slates and guess what? It guessed that with a 76% accuracy based off a model I trained. So this is the little short dictionary I was able to train off of. So the gist of this web app is that you can put any picture in there. So like, let's say it's someone's desk. So it's like a screen. I took a picture, classify. It's going to say, hopefully, a computer. Yes. Or if you don't want to hear my voice, you can hear it again. And it gets that with about 100% accuracy. One last example, let's hopefully get a water bottle. So this one's a little more tricky because it's clear, correct? Hopefully it gets it. I think it got it last time. Oh, I got it. Tobe is this. Oh, and it gets that with a 92% accuracy. So this right here is me showcasing how AI and machine learning can really be utilized. And the best part is, you know, since I'm an acting data sovereignty, aka I'm doing this all on my own, no one has access to this except for me. Not Google, not Amazon, not any of these websites. No one has access. So they can't take it away from me. I'm working on this and I have access to this only. So we can, you know, get rid of that, you know, fear. So that is AI in a nutshell. And now let's continue with the next project. I don't want to pull up the PowerPoint, so I'm just going to skip to the next project, which is project. So project is, you know, first, but I kind of incorporated it as a number system. So I'm going to show you two versions. This is very complex. I'm going to show you the web app from where it came from, and then I'm going to show you my phone version, which is has more features. So project is Navajo numbers in Navajo. So Michelle, can you do me the honors of having someone pick a random number between 0 and below 10,000?
636.
636 Hakushin Ako. Hopefully you got the audio. It's very low. That's an issue I need to work on. But other than that, you got the text right there and you can read it. Nana, do another one. Do 4 numbers, possible.
700.
Let's try 1,000 real quick.
Okay,
Any
1,000.
Just 7,000? No, how about more complex?
What? 4,120.
4,120. Good. Cool.
Ooh. Oh.
But I came across so it's Dintin Milja do and Ashla Date Nesnadin Doba that thing. So it came across. So this is the power of code. It makes learning Navajo language so much easier. Think about this as an instructor perspective. All right, class, we're gonna learn this. So can you translate this? Like make it a game. Think about it, you know, like how I just did it with y'all. Sorry. But like, okay, all right, class, what is 1? Can anyone guess what 1 is? And then they're gonna probably say, I don't know, Tashlai. Oh, so you can make this so much easier and so much faster in terms of getting across the point rather than doing a whole spreadsheet and everything and going over it, and you just kind of get into it faster. So that's project Another project I'm working on, and this is the final project, and guess what? Every one of you here right now is going to be seeing this brand new. This is brand new. No one has ever seen this project before. I like to title this project called Project Hatini. So for those who don't know, Hatini in this book I've read is verbs. And so I created a verb dictionary that allows you to utilize these resources. So for example, let's go to page 1. Page 1, we see ahiji zo, add numbers together, and objects together. Or let's say you want to know more. Maybe you want to know ibiji, you know. But then you think, okay, well, this is not great, not as spectacular as you may think. But we want to go into more in depth. Well, okay, bijilzid, afraid or scared of it. Well, let's say I want to know, how do I say I'm scared of it? Agoshi, first person, present tense, singular. Shibahaz bitnas zid. This is present tense, working right there. This is like the 12 that comes in present tense, based off of singular, dual, and distributive. Well, let's say now we have the past versions and we have the future version tenses. And so ideally, yes, you can get them all right here.
Awesome.
But that's the idea.
That's
Okay.
a verb generator. That's a verb generator.
Oh,
Our language is verb based. Our being is verb based, dynamic, and that's exactly where they need to marry each other.
Oh, so before we continue, actually, so I just developed this last night. Can anyone help me find a verb that they want to know about right now?
A verb that you want to know about.
It could be in Navajo, it could be in English.
Sean, no, that one's a handling verb.
Just do handling verb.
Okay, he said, let's do handling verb. Shanaja.
Shanaja, so ja.
Ja.
Oh, nanija, najija. So it's page, oh wow, it pulled it up. Okay, I did not expect that to actually work like that. So, okay, just for easier use, it's page 115. And if I looked it up, yeah, najija. So of course you want to say me. So plural objects, maybe, I don't know, a bag of these, film nisja. You know, I just learned that right now. Yeah. See how useful utilizing that resource is? That quick. But that's not even the end of it. How about when KTN is always like trying to figure out, all right, think about KTN when they have to think about what Navajo word of the day. It takes a lot, surprisingly. You may think, oh, it's just random. Well, it had to think about, you know, all these reasons why this word should be used as the word of the day. Get rid of that hassle. This is where that code comes in. This just picks a random page out of anywhere. And so it says today's Navajo day of the word is going to be Bish-i-ji-guess. So that's the idea. Notice that as instructors, think about how useful that is for your class. Maybe your assignment for the morning in Dinek Etche is to, all right, class, we're going to learn today's verb of the day. And that could be this, bijizos. And then I'm going to have you write all the present tenses, all the past tenses, and all the future tenses in your notebook for today. Voila, right there. And that's what makes learning Dinek Etche so much more intuitive. Using technology. Yes. The best part, too, is this is all built in-house. No one has access to this. Not Google, not Amazon, not Apple. We do. Woo! Yes. I just want to finish off the presentation real quick. So these are the demos. I hope you all enjoyed that. It was an immense fun to create these. And that one was brand new. I just, I'll get into more depth about it in a bit. So let's get back to presenting. Cool. So you just saw that project. That was Project Ahatini. Cool. And so if you want to download that Navajo Clan app for anyone or yourself, these are the QR codes. I'll leave it here for a minute for those who want. And if you can let me know, Michelle, that if anyone's doing that, that way I don't click off of it.
I believe this is being live streamed, hey? Yeah. So then you can revisit it on Facebook and go to the Net College YouTube page. So that's where we're being recorded. And
okay,
so they'll have access to that, so they can pause the video and take a screenshot.
Okay. And if you want to learn more about that journey of developing a Dolne and how it came to be, there's this great book that Shema and I helped put together, which was in chapter 6, you can actually see it, is the Dolne mobile app preservation, Navajo language and culture through technology. And so it is in this book. And if you want to, look at this QR code too as well, it's also available on Amazon. I'll just give people a minute if they want to look at that real quick.
Yeah.
Is anyone?
Keep it there for a little bit.
All right.
Wow. So this is an actual published book, yeah.
Yes. Oh, cool. And it tells the journey of my development process. I won't give you the secret of how it was made, but of course, it tells you my journey and how it came to be.
Awesome. Oh, you can continue now.
Agoshi. And lastly, how can you support independent developer like me? One is I have this GoFundMe right now, and that's mainly to help with my projects of what you just witnessed. Obviously, they're not finished and they're not ready for public distribution just due to a lot of developing needs. It's mainly coming down to the workload, and I want the best resource when it comes to this being published in the public domain or public blah. I just want to quickly talk about like challenges real quick that I go through. Let me stop screen sharing, that way you can just see my face. That's it. So I just want to talk about the challenges that come with that. Like, let's just talk about the verb for now. The verb really was a lot of work because I borrowed it from a dictionary. Funny enough, published through University of New Mexico. But that verbs, each page had 36 verbs. Now multiply that by 312 verbs in Dinek Etche. That is 22,464 entries I had to input by myself. No one was going to do that. I needed to do that. And in fact, you have to multiply that by twice because I had to input the English versions as well because I wanted it to, what good is it if you don't understand what the heck it means in English or whatever in that sense? And there's just so much work that went into it. And I plan to, translate a general dictionary in the future. And, I read in the Navajo General Dictionary that it has over 9,000 entries. That's a lot too. I'm gonna have to take forth in doing. So now imagine that. You have 22,000, you have 18,000. That is over 4,000 entries I'd have to do on my end and work that, frankly, I'm not getting paid for. I'd have to do this on just out of my free will. But I love doing it. Now let's say you want audio. Let's say you want to know how to pronounce this stuff. Reading it, someone doesn't know how to read it. Well, that is also 40,000 voiceovers. Think about that work. Think about the cost in that infrastructure. And maybe you want images to go along with that. That is an extra 20,000 pieces of resources. So overall, it's like over 100,000 resource materials that I would need to make this the most robust Dinek Etche learning material for the online. But the thing is, I think the important thing I want to take away right now is it's not impossible. This type of work is doable. You just saw it right now. So what is stopping us? Workload and funding, of course. So I hope everyone enjoyed that presentation. That was a blast to try to get that. That was like my first time doing the verb. That one was brand new. I just have to keep reiterating that. No one's ever seen that except for you, all in this room.
Yay! Woo! Thank you. Told you it was going to be a historic event.
Oh, is there? I know it's kind of hard to do questions. Is there any questions?
Okay, hold on. We have a question over here. Our tech person was saying, how many lines of code?
How many lines of code? For the verb dictionary, that one was about over. We're talking about like the dictionary itself. This isn't even talking about the functions and everything that needed to run that code. That code alone was over 30,000 lines.
Do we understand what he's talking about? Some of these guys are like, yeah, some of these understand code. Some of us have no clue. It's like when my husband's trying to explain what's wrong with the chitty, and I'm busy like, it's making this noise, like, that's me understanding code. So maybe we can look at teaching how to do code for, not just something that's online provided to the masses, but here specifically for, our students here to understand how to do code and then to reach the youth because, they're already glued to the screen. Why not make it work for us to, you know, teach them how to help themselves, right? And that's exactly what you're giving us. I am so thankful. I don't, but you know, but not ni. It's a lot of seat time. You're sitting there, and but nada dojo jiyago. And so just thinking on how much work and effort that took, and they're not even getting paid for it. Even today is based on that knowledge sharing and through that sense of volunteerism. But in that is that there's that reciprocity that we have faith in, that things, you know, good things are going to return. That's an indigenous knowledge. That's an indigenous knowledge base that we have. And there was a guy out of, he did a presentation here, Brian Hashaolia. He gave a webinar, and the main thing that he said, and this is another indigenous language, he said, what we need, he said, is a verb generator. And that is exactly what you provided. That is needed. And it's like, it's hard to teach that in the classroom because a whole class period, which, you know, we try to put so much in a 40-minute block or a 30-minute block. So thinking in terms of time constraints within our institutions where our language teaching time is very blocked and boxed off, and we only have so much time to share so much in that space. So how can we rethink a dynamic paradigm that helps us to privilege our language through these institutions, prioritizing it, and ultimately making it the official language of the nation, right? And through technology, that's what you're helping us with. So, I hope you get a lot of funding for this, and that, you know and I have faith in how our Dene people help each other in that way, that, you know, their sense of giving back is probably going to exceed what you actually receive. I'll give it back to you.
One last final comment. So all these resources can be made available offline, except for the AI one, that one that like took a picture and identified the object in Navajo. That one can't be done online. I mean, online, unfortunately. But everything else you saw can be done offline. So you won't need internet in these type of resources. All these big companies just require internet from you because, you know, they expect it. But I don't expect that from our own people, because, you know, we understand the struggles that come with these, you know, infrastructures. So if I can make these offline, they're better.
Yeah. Okay, we have a question. Hold on.
My name is Margie Begay, and I have a question on your app. I purchased it and I went into it and I was messing with it for a while. And I noticed that I couldn't find my fourth clan in there. My was Chishe. So I was wondering if you're going to be adding more of the adopted clans, and then also for like if our children are going to be using this, and a lot of our children are like either Kisani the Yadashchin or Apaches the Yadashchin. Will you be able to be adding some of that information resources as well for them if they need that?
So when it comes to Chishe, I've done a lot of research in that department, and it just came out that it's not it is an adopted clan, but it's, you know, doesn't mingle well with the clan group system. If that makes sense. So unfortunately, now we're not currently working or looking into adding these non-main Diné clans, in a sense, at this time.
Okay. So, and the understanding that things develop and grow and there's always the notion of adaptation, which is basically what our Diné philosophy paradigm is based upon, is our ability to adapt and also adopt. And that is probably our biggest resilience signature, is the fact that we can do that. And that is why, you know, even today, we continually work on making the colonized systems work for us, not the other way around. And that's where the flip needs to happen, the shift needs to change. And that's what decolonization is how do you make the system work for you? So, and so far, you know, this is wonderful news, and I'm very proud of you, and keep going with what you're doing. In the lado leitin chini naso it's ado tahuido alto bal tadan lenigi dashi chodayo ego a bit benache a that not he dole so he ado nana benaiti kid. We have another question. Hold on.
Yat wait she has you. What ela the neck at it Adone shade cutting sunning slinots and Jenny bushes sheen, and your chays are somewhere in my stuff. That's just an app in my brain. I had a question about your technology thing. How to make Dinebizad and computer apps accessible to individuals needing technology accommodations, such as screen reader, speech to text. Where I work at, they're going to be implementing this thing starting July 1st. Talking about, like with any other language, like with Spanish language, French language, you can do screen reader or you can do speech to text. Because a lot of my lesson plans are through Google Slides. Anything that I post into Google Slides is going to be subject to approval for this. And my biggest fear is I have to personally record everything and personally make captions for everything is what I'm facing. So that's starting July 1st, Jene and state of Colorado. Just you probably don't have an answer for me right now or whatever, but just something for you to think about for me.
Wow. So if you don't have an answer for that, that's okay.
Kind of do.
Okay.
I guess when it comes to accessibility, I've also dabbled into this. I think specifically she mentioned speech to text software, I guess you can say. So the challenge with that right now, at this time currently, is there is no model that is trained for our language at this moment. What does that mean? The computer cannot recognize the differences of, you know, it can't recognize that. And that's just based off a model we trained. We don't have any models for it. The only models we have are English and all these other languages, but the Diné is not in there at all. So that's what makes that a little more challenging. It's not impossible again. It can be doable, but we have to create our own model and train this type of model. That way, one day we can make, because imagine the use capabilities of this. Imagine if there was a speech to text model. And can you imagine that? It's kind of hard to understand and grasp that, because now you can go record grandma's teachings with a text transcribe right then and there. Think of how useful that is. You don't have to record and try to transcribe from ear. It's really hard. You can just have it read straight to text, and you can read it later. And this is like, that's what makes like preserving so much easier and more refined in that sense. And that's the whole idea. Yes, it is possible in terms of tech accessibility. And soon, maybe that's where you can get that text to speech. But again, the thing is, speech to text is not the same as text to speech. They're both very different models you're working with, if that makes sense.
That is an interesting point there. So speech to text is a common app on our laptops and also our phones, where
Easier to do and develop. But text to speech is much more difficult because you're generating voice from nothing. So our language from nothing, which is just, it's going to be very hard.
And the different dialects that we have.
Oh, exactly.
So like our northern relatives there with their like Plains Cree, Swampy Cree, and there's all kinds of Cree, and they have the Theta dialect, which is TH, and you know they're listening in too, and they're picking up some of these ideas because they need to know how this gets done. They need to know the information around how much work this is. They need to know that, you know, most of this work around language is volunteerism, is about the, you know, the basis on having faith in reciprocity and what right relations are and honoring those who are, you know, doing very hard work on these things and acknowledging them in a good way. So does anybody have any other questions? So verb generator, new, right here in Navajo land. Yes, this is good. It's needed. So just, you know, I hope that you have inspired, you know, our Indigenous relatives across Turtle Island and beyond that this is possible, it's doable, and that's inspiration in itself. So yeah, go ahead and do your presentation, your concluding.
Oh, okay, shame. Augustine, cool. Thank you for attending my presentation. That really means a lot. If you want to contact me, please take a picture of this slide. This takes you to my website, adultnet.com, and my email, which is the business email that I primarily respond to. So if you want to get in contact with me and, I don't know, possible partnerships, well, cool. This work wouldn't have been done without any of you, I would say, because it was also all of your teachings that instilled into me to do this. So keep doing what you're doing. Maybe you'll get another version of me somewhere.
Yay! You're getting a wonderful round of applause. And we'll take a short break here. And so some of this information is going to be available through the booklet that I'm going to share post event. And so with Albert's permission, we can add the QR codes and the other information. We'll kind of add that to the booklet too. So the booklet will serve as a source of some of the research that's relevant to the gathering today, what Dr. Christelle shared, and what's going to be shared throughout the day, and some of the, you know, decolonization literature and the Indigenous scholars that are, you know, pushing the way forward. I want to acknowledge them in the booklet as well, and then add some of the links and resources, teaching approaches, instructional methods, actual templates, and actual UBD lesson holistic design that you can use and recreate. And then, you know, links to where you can find these templates online and connections, lots and lots of connections. So yeah. Safe travels back home, and thank you for being a part of our day. And I'll give your presenter gift bag to your mom here today. So thank you. Biga. Alrighty, let's take another short break. And there's coffee out there. The Navajo tea should be done nice and dark. So replenish yourself with that, with those herbal drinks. Alrighty, let's take a break. Let us know if the washrooms need some attention and what time is it? Okay, it's 11. Okay, good. We're on good time. And I'm sorry there wasn't any more discussion on that. There was a lot we could have talked about. And hopefully for part 2, which is in March or April, that he's actually here in person and that he can take a lot more of our questions. So, all righty. Cue elevator music.
Okay, so, alrighty, let's keep chugging along. We have a good hour, which should be a wonderful amount of time. If you need to get up and stretch, and please just, this is a safe space for you to be yourself and also to stretch and leave and go around when you need to, so you can stand and kind of, dance around while you're listening. I'm one of those people that can't sit still, so I have to stand behind people for these conferences and stuff. And there's coffee and tea out there, and I got some Girl Scout cookies here I'm going to dish out. So I'd like to introduce our next presenter. This is Shazade Chris Jones, and Ashin Ben Dehatalzi.
Yat Bene. Good morning. My name is Christina Jones, and I always go by Chris Jones. And she ki anin shlon tatnesani bashish chin, but ani dasha chedo she dasha nala. Aro tenekanda egisi nasha. Aro look ajukai laho yaho ulta agi ikwa e nashnish ikwa e sha ulta ako. Aro it's been a while I've been teaching, so I enjoy teaching. That's what I like to do. Aro I teach little kids for so many years, and din hizad linigi the nebizadigi. I've been teaching students for so long, and sometimes I miss it. I miss teaching the Navajo immersion, the Navajo language. But now I'm teaching at a regular school. I'm teaching at a community school, but I'm teaching a regular academic class, which is 3rd grade. So I enjoy doing that. So I'll move on. My presentation today, yes. Oh, my presentation today is on curriculum. So I do a lot of curriculum work here and there, and I've worked with other schools. And a lot of this is basically just from learning. And that's how we learn. We learn from cafeteria closes at 11:30, Jen. So I will move on. I forgot what I was talking about. What's that? Oh, yeah, we learn a lot from learning, from what we do. And I'm glad that I learned how to do curriculum. And it brought me a long ways, and I like doing curriculum. And right now I do a lot of immersion, since I've taught immersion for quite a while. And I do a lot of my own resources. So that's what I do. And my sister here, she's sitting right here, she teaches immersion. So sometimes she'll call me up and say, can you do you have this resource? Can you help me with this? So I always sometimes send them to her and she'll use it. So sometimes she'll always tell me, why can't you publish it? Why can't you send it out for other people to use? And I've been thinking about that a lot, so maybe that is my next step, but we'll see. So teaching is a lot. It's like a 24/7 job, even though we go in at, 7 and leave at 5. We still take our work home. So let me move on. And thank you for coming, all of you that are here. And those of you that are online or that are on Facebook or YouTube. So welcome. And okay, this one is where it all started. So where it all started was Rough Rock Community School. That's where, after I did my student teaching, that's where I started. That's where I started working. And that was back in 2003. And imagine this year, I've been teaching for over 20 years. That is something. So I worked at Rough Rock from 2003 to 2015. And I've taught various grades. I've taught 4th grade, 3rd grade, and I've taught K-1 immersion. And I think that's where I really enjoy teaching immersion. I've taught immersion for 10 years. And it was so, I guess, when you see the kids actually learning and you see that speaking, it makes you feel happy. So it's like you did your job, what your purpose is. So moving on, our definitions here, which we all know, we can always come across these when we're doing curriculum. We have framework, we have our mapping, domain, pacing guides, scope and sequence, common core, which are our standards, power standards, crosswalk, curriculum mapping, cluster, outcome, coaching, and modeling. So we work with a lot of these words, and we use a lot of these terms when we are working with curriculum. So today my curriculum is basically working on curriculum for teaching Navajo students like immersion. That's what my curriculum is today. So working with curriculum, we had to look at the Bloom's taxonomy first. So we had to look at what we wanted to outcome. So this here on the screen, what you see is the Bloom taxonomy that we use today. And this is the Western perspective, the Bloom taxonomy. And from there, as a team, we were thinking about, okay, since this is what our goal, we have to use these blooms in our curriculum. So what we did as a team, which when I say team is I'm talking about my Navajo curriculum team that I work with at Rough Rock. And what we did was we went and we made our own, we changed this Western perspective Bloom taxonomy into a Navajo perspective. That's what we did. So here you see the knowledge, the comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, the steps that we use for Blooms. And as I show you the next slide, which is going to be which is our Navajo Blooms. But on this one, I couldn't post it in the slide because the presentation, the PowerPoint itself, did not have a Navajo font. It's not showing up. Will it show up? I think it's slow hooking up. Do you guys see it? Okay.
Oh, there we go. basically another TV monitor. It's another monitor setup. Probably have to go out there and take a look.
I don't see it on my screen, but it's over here. Okay, so the blooms, this is what we, how we translated the blooms. And I want to go further down. I want you to see that triangular. This is interesting. I'm somewhere. What is this hooked up to? Go all the way to the bottom. Keep going. Right there. Okay, so there's the blooms where we translated it, and the top part is each section. It's talking about each section. So the main one is right here where we translate it. So the last one here was, it started with what? Evaluation on the regular blooms. So that was the first part. So when you compare it with the Western perspective blooms, we just translated it, the whole blooms back into Navajo. That's what we did. So as we go back up, okay, this is not touchscreen. As we go back up, then we see the all these components right here. They're all up here on top. So I tried putting this whole thing into my PowerPoint. It wouldn't work because the PowerPoint didn't have Navajo font. Okay, see the first, all the way to the top. So right here is that first one, knowledge, so that's how we arranged it. That's what we did in each area. So we kind of broke up each section. So we kind of used that within our curriculum. Every time we did a certain topic, we made sure we implemented those. So that's what we did. Okay, the next one is, how can I make it bigger? There. Okay, the next one I have here is where we actually start breaking the curriculum, what the foundation of the curriculum, how it's set up, how we went and set up the whole thing, the framework. That's what this one is. I wish I could zoom in so you guys can see it. I can zoom in on my end over here, but. You can always invite Chris as a consultant to your organization. Bigger on that side. And you'll have access to more in-depth cases.
Yeah.
Go to slides. It'll show you if you go to slides.
I think it's your settings on the computer.
Oh, so I made sure that I have presenters I know are going to be understanding, that I know and I trust, and they were willing to do this voluntarily. So I just learned that the cafeteria does close at 11:30, so we're going to head over there and eat. Okay, so take a lunch break, and we will start at 12:30. Okay, so an hour lunch break, and start at 12:30. And I'll work with all of this to try and make it so that it's bigger and more legible. Thank you. So we're breaking for lunch. Go ahead and head over to the cafeteria, and the lunch sign-in sheet is running around here, so go ahead and please sign in. Our sponsors need that information so that they can match the lunch tickets with the lunches served. Thank you so much. See you in an hour.